So can tech stocks keep up with this optimism?
I think that optimism is real. I think the big changes that are happening in the ecosystem are these secular changes, like the move to the cloud. And that's a big driver for Amazon. We see 50% growth year over year in the AWS division. And you see large enterprises starting to move, and that's what's driving a lot of the operating income and a lot of the growth.
So the frothiness is worth it.
Yeah, it's, the public markets are different than the private markets. I'd say in the private markets, we're seeing a little bit of a reversion to the mean. A lot of the frothiness.
How so?
Well, when you had me on the show, say a year ago or 18 months ago, we saw that private market valuations were 2x the public market ones. So the same company in the private markets was worth twice what it is in the publics, and that's no longer the case.
You wrote about a spike in venture debt. Why is this a trend?
So there are two ways for startups to finance their growth. One is to raise equity dollars. People like me, venture capitalists, invest dollars to buy shares, and that dilutes the company. So we buy 20 to 25% of the company in a round. But there's this recent trend where companies actually borrow. And it's happening more and more. And in fact, it's growing faster than some of the equity investment. And it's because this kind of financing is actually non-dilutive to founders. So they can actually raise the capital they need to grow without taking on nearly as much dilution. And what we're seeing is, as companies stay private longer and longer, like an Uber or a Dropbox, which 10 years in order before they go public, instead of raising that pre-IPO round, they're actually raising $500 million, $1 billion, or $2.5 billion in debt.
When you talk about private companies reverting back to the mean, are Uber and Airbnb an exception?
They are.
And are they the only exceptions?
No, there are many exceptions.
Okay.
There are quite a few companies that are fetching still premium multiples and premium valuations. What I mean by reverting to the mean is the exceptional companies will always command exceptional prices, but 2 or 3 years ago, every company was commanding exceptional prices, even though they may not have warranted it. And so the reversion to the mean means the middle class of companies, the companies who aren't growing as fast or aren't as iconic, the prices for those companies have come down quite a bit.
So are we in the middle of a reckoning in private tech?
Not a reckoning. It's a reversion to the mean. It's a slow correction. It's nothing as dramatic as we saw in 2000.
Okay, let's talk about the jobs report. Solid report added 211,000 jobs. At the same time, you had Eric Schmidt, the chairman of Alphabet, talking about how he doesn't think that robots are going to take all our jobs. He said, I'm not going to take the position that because no one really knows the answer, that this time is not different to previous industrial revolutions. But while we have a tremendous dislocation in jobs, I'm not denying that in aggregate, there will be more jobs. A little windy way to say it. Yeah. Do you agree with him?
So when the first dishwashers came out, that was the first robot in the house. And people were terrified that all the dishwashers employed in lots of restaurants would suddenly be out of business. Today, there are about 500,000 people who do that job. So no, I don't think robots are going to put people out of a job. Another way of saying it, I was on a panel with the former executive at Tesla. And inside the Tesla mega factory in Nevada, there are as many people employed per car produced in that Tesla factory as in any other factory in America. And so what really ends up happening with machine learning or artificial intelligence or automation is not that we have fewer jobs, it's that the kinds of work that humans do changes. And we're able to focus on more interesting work, more cerebral work, as opposed to more manual work.
So let's talk about self-driving cars then. For example, Uber and Alphabet are in the middle of this big lawsuit over whether or not technology IP was stolen. If self-driving cars are a success, what does that mean for all of these people who have been building cars in the first place?
Yeah, so
and driving them.
Well, so there are 5 different stages of automation. We're not going to get to the 5th stage, which is you and I sitting in the car having a coffee in the next 15 years. I don't think that's going to happen. And so there's...
So we're still going to have to be sitting at the steering wheel, is what you're saying?
Yeah, either that or there are companies that offer to drive trucks through remote control, the way that we drive drones in the military today. And so humans are going to be involved in self-driving cars for a very long time, probably another 15 to 25 years. And the idea is that during that time, people will be able to learn new skills and still be employed. So this is not a discontinuity where tomorrow the 19 million cars that are sold in the US each year, or whatever it is, are suddenly going to become fully automated and everyone's going to be without a job. It's a much more gradual change than most people appreciate.
What are the new skills?
What are the new skills? Well, so imagine driving 8 trucks at the same time instead of driving 1. That's one. That's a big one. I think the gig economy also is definitely fragmenting labor. One of the big themes that we're pursuing inside of our firm is new forms of education, much more vocational education. And so what those skills are going to be, I think, is still to be determined. But we're hopeful that as we invest and build the next generation of educational institutions, people will be ready for.
So if automation is a mega trend, if private companies, some of them are reverting to the mean, where do you see the most potential? What are you putting your bets on?
So we're spending a lot of time in machine learning and artificial intelligence. And we've made an investment in a company that does speech recognition for sales. It's called Chorus. And we believe that speech recognition is the new form of human-computer interaction. Turns out you can actually speak 3 times faster than you can type. And so it's much more convenient to speak to a computer. Another big area of focus for us is machine translation. That's translating from one language to another. Computers can now do that better than humans at scale. And so we're continuing to look for investments in that category.
Last question, you were here a year ago. What are we going to be talking about when it comes to the market a year from now?
I think we'll be talking about a very heady season of very large IPOs. The IPO market is, we've seen about 9 companies go public through May. That's much on a 2x pace compared to last year. We still have
But Uber and Airbnb, I mean, all signs point to those ones being even a couple years out.
There's a lot of regulatory questions to be answered in both those cases, but I think at some point those 2 companies will go out. You still have Pinterest. You still have quite a few in the IPO pipeline. And if the recent markets have shown there's a lot of appetite for high-growth technology companies, the average gain, I think, is 35% on new issuances in the IPO market. So the doors are open, and so lots of companies will be going out. It's a very exciting time.